Allow me to introduce you to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Fadzleen Binti. She completed her bachelor's degree in Pastel from University of Exeter, United Kingdom, and graduated with first class honors. She currently holds a master's degree in IT management and a PhD in management of technology from UTM. As a Google certified educator and a Microsoft innovative educator, she is an avid writer who has a few publications under Oxford Fajar, Ulani, USMR, and IGI Global. She enjoys knowledge sharing and networking at local and international conferences and webinars. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Dr. Nurfadzleen. Over to you.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Mr. Taufik. Good morning, everybody. My name is Fadzleen. Let me share my presentation first.
Yes, Dr. It's clear.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so can I start? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, everybody. Assalamualaikum. And I'm so honored and happy to be here this morning. I know that it's very early and it is on Saturday. It's time for us to rest. But inshallah, I will try my best to share my knowledge. And please feel free to share or ask questions if you have. So for today's session, the title is Write It Right. I decide to add a bit of blended learning because I feel right now with the current situation for schools in Malaysia, it's good to be able to talk and perhaps share something about blended learning, which is the combination between learning in school as well as online learning. So as mentioned by our host or moderator earlier, I'm Fadzleen Binti. You can call me Fadzleen, and I'm from SMKA Bandar Bahru. So without further ado, a little bit about myself. This is like a very simple timeline. As you can see that I am Generation X, I think. All right. So I'm right now in my 40s, and I've been teaching for almost 18 years. And I believe that all of you that are attending our session for today are all passionate teachers and also students, I believe, because Madam Betty have mentioned to me earlier that there are some students that are joining us today. So welcome all of you, regardless whether you are teachers, officers, or student. Hopefully this session will benefit all. And a little bit about myself. I like to learn. I believe that as a teacher, there's no full stop to learning. So I like to learn, and I certified myself for Google Educator and Apple Teacher, as well as for the Microsoft certification. I like to write because I believe that in order for me to teach students to write, I felt this is a very good exercise for me in ensuring that students can write and for teachers to practice what they preach. So far I've written academic articles regarding teaching, mobile learning, and as well as curriculum related from Form 1 to Form 5. Basically, I've written quite a number of books. These are some of the books that I could share with you right now. And as mentioned by our moderator, I like to do knowledge sharing. I like to share because I feel that sometimes when we share, we can also learn from each other because, a lot of teachers here, when I talk to them, when I share with them, they also share their ideas. And I think this is a very good platform for us to share our knowledge and professionalism. So I've done some webinars with PPD Johor Bahru. I work closely with Jabatan Pelayaran Negeri Johor in doing digital content. And also, I'm very active with internationalization program. My school, we have done a lot of projects with with schools from South Korea, Saudi Arabia, from US, and so on. So just to show you a glimpse of my school, I'm teaching at SMKA Bandar Baru Uda, which is located in Johor Bahru. It's a large school. We have 2 sessions, and this is just one form. Can you imagine that? Just one form, and it's already like almost filling up the hall, school hall. And this is like one of my classes. I'm teaching all exam classes. I'm teaching Form 3 and Form 5. So yeah, managing that on top of other responsibility is no piece of cake, but you do what we can. I like to also create content to help my students as well as teachers in teaching as well as learning English language. I also do Google Classroom, especially during the restricted movement order. So I did Google Classroom, but to be honest, I would say that the participation is not really full participation because because students sometimes they have their restriction, teachers also may have some hurdles, but you know what we can do is just take baby steps, try our best, and choose any method that works, because technology is just a tool. What matters is that the teachers are able to use whatever tools they have to motivate as to engage the students. Right. So let me move on to my workshop content. So far, is everything okay? Yeah.
Very
All right,
clear,
okay,
Doctor.
just to check. All right. So just to highlight what are the contents of today's workshop. So I will do some introduction about writing, and then we will move on to the format and analysis. And when it comes to format analysis for today's workshop, basically it's just writing 1119. So we have section 1 and section 2, which is directed writing and continuous writing. So we shall look into that. Next, we are looking at what are the teaching strategies that we can do. I know there are some students here, but you can also see how teachers can teach you, and you can also perhaps use these strategies to help you at home. And blend in. Why I use blend in? Because I feel that nowadays you don't just write on a piece of paper. You can use a lot of resources. You have Google, and you don't just use internet just for searching for pictures or just finding site. We can actually curate or get a lot of information and website as well as content. You don't actually have to do everything from scratch. So I'm going to share with you some ways we can become smart teachers and do what we can with all the resources that in our disposal. And of course, there's Q&A session just to give a reminder to the moderator as well as the participants. Feel free to ask question, and I would kindly remind the moderator if you want to chip in whenever I speak and just mention to me the question, I'll stop and just answer. Would that be okay?
Yes,
Yeah, because
Doctor. Perfect.
sometimes it will keep all the question at the end. Sometimes it's gonna, just
Yeah, we don't have
yeah.
time to
I
answer, right?
yeah. So no, yeah, we do have time, but I think that when it's still fresh, and we can just attempt it straight away. So far, okay, yeah,
Okay,
with the
okay,
workshop content.
okay.
Very good.
Yes, so ma'am.
Okay, let's rock and roll. So this is the first thing that I would like to show to all of you. I'm sure this is like a familiar scenario for most of us at school. Maybe some students can also relate to this when you give them essay questions. So just using Harry Potter as an example. So type of student when answering essay question. Actually, there's another one, which is those students who just don't attempt at all. This is just two of the typical reaction or expression that students have when it comes to essay writing. And some students, they will be like, okay, fine, let's read the whole question and try to understand this. And there are also students like, what is this? And they are trying to make heads and tail out of the question. And also you have students who doesn't bother and doesn't attempt at all. So I'm also going to have one special spot in my workshop where how do we help reluctant writers, because I'm teaching in a school where the students are of various competency level when it comes to writing. I would say that there are students who are very good writer, they can write very well, but majority of my students are average, and also we have some weak students. So I am always the one teaching the first class and the last class. So that experience actually prepare me in understanding how do we pace our lesson to suit the students. And I'll be glad to share some tips as well as listening and welcoming teachers in sharing how do they manage students with various motivation level, various skills, and so forth. Okay, right. So these are typical depiction of teachers at the beginning of the year and the end of the school year. I think for most of us, this is not, you don't have to wait at the end of the year to look like that, because, you know, work, and there are a lot of work piling up. But you know what? We do what we can, and I'm sure that the officers are also um, diligently assisting and facilitating and supporting teachers in, you know, managing all the workload as well as some of the things that we have to do in school. So I believe that when it comes to teaching essay and also teaching other areas in school, it is very important for us to learn that it is okay to take a break. You don't actually have to stress yourself, because and you can always ask for help, because I think sometimes we feel overwhelmed. This is something which is very normal. As someone who has been teaching for 18 years, almost 20 years, I feel that this is something that I've learned from experience, and I'm sure that we can assist each other, work together in our team to make sure that our English team can work throughout the session without looking like the last picture. Okay, right. So let's go to the crux of the matter, which is about writing. So, anyone familiar with this comic? Yes, it's Snoopy, right? So let me check. Is everyone okay? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, so this is an example of what students and teachers face. All right. A good writer will sometimes search hours for just the right word. Have you ever experienced students who just sit there, you know, sitting and looking like spaced out, or like they are waiting for hours just to write the first sentence? This is very common even for my
Definitely.
students. Yeah, because some student will say, no teacher, I'm looking for the perfect sentence. This is very common. Sometimes they're like, oh teacher, tak ada idea. No
Case
idea
of
teacher.
writer's block, doctor.
Yes, exactly. I think this happens to everyone. All right. So so how can we teach English writing in the new normal, especially right now with the current situation? Maybe some of our students are not feeling well. So how do we make sure that all our students are being provided with inclusive support? Because I think the main hurdle I would say for teachers is ensuring that we are teaching and reaching out to all students regardless of their level. This is actually one of the main hurdle, I would say. All of teachers, they are able to teach very well. You have the language capacity, you have the skill, you have the expertise, but when we are dealing with human, you have to make we have to take consideration of their motivation level, their readiness, and how do we use all these elements, all these aspects in making sure that we include everyone. And to be honest, as someone who have been teaching for a while, and even for new teachers, it can be quite overwhelming to ensure everybody is able to understand and get what you're trying to do. So don't worry, teachers, this is something normal, thinking and wanting to ensure that we can reach out to all our students. So these are some of the things that are common when it comes to writing. Some of my students say, oh no, I don't have enough time to finish my writing. This is very common. Usually in my class, especially for weaker class, what I can share is that I rarely ask them to do to take the AC as a homework. For weakest classes, I usually will ask them to finish in class, because, or to do at least some of the drafting, the process writing in class, because you know why? Some of these students, I don't think that they have enough support to do it at home on their own. So for the weaker students, usually it's good that you help them in managing time and monitoring their writing, even if it's just one paragraph. At least you are there throughout the whole situation, so to monitor them, because I would rather get an essay that they do on their own than copy and paste, because sometimes students do that, but we can motivate them and at least be there and just try. And the second one is that I often make grammatical mistakes in my writing. I think this is very common when it comes to students. And then as much as often as you always tell them, oh, the SVA, subject verb agreement, this always happen. You know why? Because most of the students, they forgot to read and proofread their essay. This is a common mistake, even for good students, because they feel the longer they write, the better. But that's basically the bigger, like the worst miss ever. It's not about how long you write, as long it is adequate, then, and as long as it's like the grammar is on point, you get better marks. And for students in Malaysia, this is very common. I think especially in Sabah and Sarawak and in certain areas in the peninsula, some of our students, English is not their second language. Maybe English is just third, fourth, maybe fifth language. So I think this is very common for students to be bewildered, and they're stuck in what is the right word. So some students may have the word in their mother tongue or in their second language, but they don't know the word. So this is where we may assist them in doing so. So I would like to share my favorite quote from Margaret Atwood. She's a poet, she's a novelist, and I really like this quote, and I believe in it. And I always tell my students that, you just write. If you wait for perfection, you will never write a word, right? And I always tell my students that, you can always correct. You can always correct wrong sentences or wrong paragraph, but you can never correct a blank paper. So I think that one of the main issue for our students is that they are waiting for perfect sentence to come up from the sky, or maybe they are thinking, oh, I have to make the right sentence, the correct sentence, then I'll start writing. And I think this is one thing that I learned even as a graduate students, that if I wait for something like that to happen, we will never get it done. So I think this is something that maybe teachers, officers, and students can consider, that you just do it. Even it's wrong, it's all right. Just, one step at a time. So far, okay? Am I talking too fast? It's
Okay,
okay?
loud and clear.
Very good. Okay,
Okay.
now let's go to the first, the format. I'm basically just going to just breeze through, because I think most teachers, they know this part. So you have two papers. We have paper one and we have paper two. Move on. So this is something which I think all of the teachers who are teaching Form 5, they know about this, they're aware of this, and it's good maybe to just remind our students about it. So section A is directed writing, section B is continuous writing, and altogether they carry 85 marks. And there are strategies in answering this. I am sure that all of you have assist, you have drill in your students' head and students' mind about what to do, what are the format. But what I'm doing right now is just to consolidate and just to share what we have already done with our students, right? Okay, so I know it is very tempting and very evil of me to do this, but I just like to use this as an analogy, because I feel that this picture is kind of similar to how we write. Okay, there are many ways for students in writing. Okay, there are many styles. Okay, some like to put a lot of content in their essay. Some just basic. And some people just roll everything together and just sumbat, like they just push everything together as long dah. Okay, this is my essay. Just take it. Just take it, teacher. So some students they have this tendency, but there are some students who are very meticulous. They layer it with the right way. So I think it's very important for teachers that we are aware of various type of students. Okay, they are very they are messy essay, they are very very well organized essay, and these are the type of students that we are expecting. I'm not saying there's expected of all this bread for your class, but this is just an analogy when it comes to writing, right? I would like to share this. I decide to build this image because I feel that it is very important that students understand that in order for you to get A plus essay, it is similar or akin to building a good house. You need a very solid foundation. All right. For example, like for this one, okay, you need to have good grammar. This is for sure. This is the foundation because some students, no matter how long you write, if you do not have good and correct grammar, then the foundation will crumble. Okay? And then there's also the next one. You need to have varied sentence structures. I think for the good students, it's not really much problem. You have simple, compound, you have also complex sentences. But for weaker students, those students who are reluctant writers, they will feel, oh, I don't know how to write, teacher. I don't know. I just give up. So how do you want to motivate the students? Because you don't want them to send blank papers, right? And trust me, I'm not here in this workshop being putting my head on the cloud or just sitting on the pedestal thinking, oh, students know all these things. Because let's face it, as teachers teaching in school, we have a lot of type of students, and all these students deserve support in their own way. So it is very important that we look at the students' capacity, their level, and we can scaffold according to their level, and hopefully they can reach to A plus essay. Next, we are looking at the wide vocabulary. Some students, they are able to come up with the basic vocabulary. Yes, their essay is just safe essay. But if you want to get A plus essay, this is actually one of the main criteria, which is to have extensive vocabulary, the precise words in order for them to, to portray their ideas immaculately in the best way. And next we go to the second story. Is it a second story? All right. Okay. And then the points and paragraphing. So this is very important because it's something like a bread. If you just have like the just top layer and nothing in there, it's blah. Of course, it's
Doctor,
not appetizing, right?
may I interrupt you for a while?
Sure, sure.
Ada student named, okay, all right, thank you, because the slide was interrupted now. Okay, you may proceed, Doctor.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so the points and paragraphing. Okay, so this is basically relevant, especially for DW, directed writing, because they provide you the points. So this is the crucial part. You have to include everything. Later on, I will move in deeper. And of course, this is the pinnacle of it. If you want to get an A plus essay, showing originality, you are able to, excuse me, to capture the marker's attention. Is you simply just wow. Okay, and this is something that I can share with you about A plus essay. Don't worry about I will give you this slide. I will give later to Madam Betty, and then I'm sure that all of you can just use this and just refer to if you like. And let's go to marking criteria for A plus. So marking criteria for A plus. So these are actually based on the SPM answering scheme, the JSI. So the most important thing is the language. This is the one that carry the biggest mark. It must be entirely accurate. Vocabulary. I'm not going to read the slide. You can look at it. There are language. There are vocabulary, spelling, punctuation, paragraphing.
Doctor,
Let's see. There
Okay.
you go. Okay, so we have paragraph, task fulfillment, and appeal. This is the part where I think most students need to reach, which is to appeal to the teachers and the markers. Because most students, they can write, but they're to get A plus, you need to reach that level where wow, you wow the markers, assessor, and we hope that we can get more A plus for students and they're able to express themselves in the best way possible. Right. So I'm just gonna like go quickly about the format. I think all of you are aware of this, even students. If you forget, I'm just rekindling or just reminding you of the format for SPM. You have article, you have speech, formal letter, informal letter, and report. And later on, I will show you the analysis of the exam questions so far. All right. So can I move on to this? Okay. All right. So directed writing. Just for your information, for when it comes to writing, directed writing, teachers know this. We have the CFL formula. All teachers have this. This is something like a mantra for them when it comes to marking directed writing. You have content, you have format, you have content and language. Usually that's how we mark your essay students. So for format, usually the maximum mark is 3 marks, and you have followed by content, 12, and then for language is 20 marks. Right. So let's go to directed writing. Okay. So when it comes to directed writing, I'm just going to just go through this briefly, but please stop me or feel free to ask question if you like. So for format, these are the format mentioned, and make sure you read the instruction carefully. And for content, you have to use all the points given and elaborate with examples, quotes, statistic, idiom, or supporting details. I will show you step by step how to do this. All right. This is just an um, overall information when it comes to directed writing. So can I move forth? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
For
sure.
language, yes. For language, this is the part. This is the crucial. This is like the meat in the meat or like the the content, the crux of your essay, language. Because most students, this is the problem. And I'm sure as teachers, you are doing your best to help your students in, ensuring that they can write as well as possible and as error-free as possible. So, and I always remind my student, you have to recheck your essay, even the good students, because sometimes they are so engrossed, they wanted to write as long as possible. And what happened? They don't have enough time to check. So check it out, students. You have to check your essay, making sure that your sentences are correct and your grammar are on point. And how long do you have to to spend to check your essay? Just 5 minutes. So if you have longer time, then you can check. And use appropriate terms and jargons. Jargons here means a specific term. For example, students or teachers, if you are teaching students, okay, people who are using the internet. Some students, they like to write like that. Students who like to use the internet. Instead, they should use the word netizens. So asking them and exposing them to the right jargons will help them in writing better essay and getting better marks. And of course, anything that we do, we have to do in moderation. Use conjunction and idiom sparingly. All right, sparingly means you don't use it too much, you don't use it too little. Now, I'm just going to go through this. And just looking at the time right now. Okay, now this is article. The most important thing, teachers and students, when it comes to article, I'm sure your teacher have taught you this. The format is you have the title, and then of course the writer's name here, and then the ending. So make sure that you have the ending or the paragraphing, depending on the JSI, on how the marking scheme is being given. So please remember this. Usually for weaker student, I would always tell them, please, at least you must know the format, because the least they can do is, we don't want them to give blank paper. And for the good students, we want to make sure that they achieve the highest mark in the band as possible. Right. So when it comes to formal letter, all right, you have the sender here, and then you have the date and salutation, title, and signing off. We we somehow look at the analysis and think that there might be possibility that letter might come out for SPM, but we never know. Anything can be a surprise because a few years before, a report was being tested twice, so anything can happen. But you know, just make sure that you expose the students to letter format. All right. And for informal letter, it's much simpler. You have the sender's address, the salutation, and the signing off. So far, okay?
Okay, doctor.
All
Very
right.
clear. Okay.
Okay. So report. So example like this. Okay. So for it comes to report, you can remind the students and the students who are here. Please remember to who are you writing to, so the sender, and then you have the title as well as reported by. So these are some of the format that you have to remember when it comes to report. Now, speech, this is also one of the question that when we the teachers who are helping Jabatan Pelajaran Negeri Johor come up with some samples of essay questions. We think that speech may be one of the possibility of question or format that may come up. So maybe you can just like ensure students are being exposed to this. Greetings, and you have the speech title and purpose and the ending. All right. I like to give something like this to my students because when we give them in bite size, it's easier for them to digest, because sometimes if it's good to give them the whole essay, but at the same time when you remind them by giving snippets like this, it's easier for them to know, okay, these are the things that I need to do. Now let's go to the past year question. Okay, so these are the analysis that I did. Actually it's until 2019. Sorry, I forgot to change this. So these are the format so far when it comes to directed writing. Okay, so let's look at until 2019 article. All right, so these are so far the question. What will come out in 2021? Yes, we don't have 2020, but we have 2021 because our exam is going to be in January. So hopefully it's something that our students are able to do. Inshallah, we will try our best. And students, I hope that you will try your best as well, because your teachers have done a lot, going by leaps and bounds to help you. So believe in yourself and try your best. Okay?
Doctor,
Right.
we have a question.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay, can we use idioms in writing?
Yes, but you have to use it sparingly. As mentioned before, when you use idioms, you have to use it at the right in the context of the sentence. For example, if you wanted to say when you want to establish or you want to emphasize on the sentence, you can use it, but don't use it for every paragraph, because then it will be excessively done. All right, does that answer the question? Later on I will give some examples. All
Okay,
right, thank
thank you,
you for the
doctor.
question, I appreciate it. Now let's okay, I got Lee Ming Ho to help me in presenting this. I like to use pictures because students like all these Korean things. So usually what I do in my presentation, I like to use all these whatever trending actors or actresses to make them motivated in learning. So essential tips in answering directed writing section. Sorry, you have to tilt your head a bit. Now, these are some tips. I like to use something like this because it's like bite size and it gets to the point. So the first one, my dear students, as well as distinguished teachers and officers, read the question carefully. Identify the topic and the format required. I put this in different colors to show the emphasis on this. The first thing you have to do is please read the question and look at the question. What is the topic? And what is the format? Example. This is an example. Okay, you can read the question. Mm-hmm. I'll give you time to read the question. All right. So, what is the topic? Can somebody answer, or maybe the moderator can answer? So, what is the
So,
topic?
natural disaster,
Natural disaster. And what is the natural disaster?
flood.
Flood. There you go. Excellent. So yes, that is a topic. All right. And what is the format here?
Article.
Very good. Excellent. So usually for my students, if they answer this, we give them some props or we just acknowledge them by, praising and everything. You know all these things because we always motivate our students in class, right? So it's very important when you're teaching in class, you get students to identify this, especially the weaker students, because at least if they are able to do this, they can try in attempting the question. Now, how to write a good introduction. I think this is one of the main hurdle for most students. How to start, teacher? I have no idea, teacher. So this is one of the common thing that my weaker students usually have. And it is okay. Sometimes students face this problem. Usually I'm okay with weak student. I have problem with unmotivated and student who doesn't want to bother. And I'm sure that the students that are attending my session right now, they are all good students. You are here because you want to learn, and that is awesome. Okay, and all of you are awesome for wanting to share and learn together. So I always tell my students, when you want to start, always start with something general statement. For example, if you're talking about flood, you can say that, what is something that you know about flood? Is it positive or negative? I'm giving an example to help the weak students, yeah? So when we want to help the weak student, especially to get them thinking, you always start with something that they can acknowledge, which is positive or negative. So you can ask the students, is it a positive or negative scenario or phenomenon? And then they will say, oh, teacher, flood is negative. All right. So when you identify that, you write it down. And then so students know, you can say flood. So what are negative words that you can use to describe flood? Then you start doing all this mind map. That is how usually you do scaffolding with students. So you get the main idea, is it positive or negative? And then you can branch out. What are words that you can use to describe negative situation? Oh, bad teacher. This is the most basic word. Next, they say, oh, this is terrible. This is disastrous. This is catastrophic. Those, you can start building up the level of vocabulary from there. So I think it's very important for teacher establish this, the tone of the essay. Next one is relevant background information, not the main point, meaning that they can talk about where does flood happen most of the time. So when they talk about Malaysia, you know that it's usually in the East Coast, maybe some other parts in other Malaysia that they know, and then also they can also cite countries that has flood issue like Bangladesh, those countries that have this problem. Even Japan recently have this problem. So I think getting students to know all this basic information can help them to get better marks. And thesis statement, what do they think about flood? So thesis statement is basically your opinion or what is your essay all about. Okay, so far? Okay, so let me move on to how are you going to move from there? From knowing what is the format, knowing what is the topic, the next one, you have to identify and label all the content points in the question. I always tell my students, please, 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 when you look at the question, this is what you have to do. Now, let's look at the question here. This is the continuous question previously, and I've written there the causes and the effect. So usually, for the second strategy that I remind the students, they need to label the points, the content points. So what do? They put like this: C1, C2, C3. And nowadays, SPM question, if you are aware, starting from last year, the ministry have given some clues, and that we are going to be exposed to more hot type item when it comes to when it comes to triple one and question, meaning that they will ask the students to give their own idea, usually more than one. So I'm just giving you some example. This is actually a question paper from Penang. Okay, I'm using this question to illustrate how you do this, and please make sure the students label this. When students do this, it's very structured. They plan their essay well, because I always tell my students, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So always do it structurally. When you do it structurally, inshallah, your essay can be, you can include all the points. All right. So like this, for example, usually when it comes to content, there are 12 marks. So sometimes they might be questions that have more than 12 marks, 12 points. What happened? You remind the student, it's okay, don't panic, just write down C13 and C14. How do they mark? It is up to the teachers. But what important for the students, they need to label the content. And the most important thing when it comes to give one more way, give one more suggestion, they must be able to come up with their own idea. So far, okay?
Okay, man. Okay, doctor.
Okay, all right. Okay, so these are the question. I'm not going to read it. So how do we go about after labeling? All right. Okay, next. You have to use the correct tenses. I think this is something which is how do you say this? It's a general knowledge, like you know that you have to use the correct tenses, but sometimes you have to remind the students because they might forget, or they might be weak, they might not know, or they might forgotten. So I think this is something which is quite simple to remind students as well as others when it comes to using the correct tenses. I usually tell my students, you use present tense for facts or current event. For example, you can say flood happens in low area such as Bangladesh and other countries, example. So when it comes to facts, they have to use present tense. Past tense, this one, if they are talking about flashback, for example, let's say in 2013, tsunami happened, blah, blah, blah. So they have to use past tense or flashback. Flashback means you are looking back at what happened in the past. Sometimes this can be used in directed writing. Future tense, usually I always tell students, please use this in the conclusion, because usually in conclusion you ask the students, okay, I hope that Malaysia will do their best in managing the flood situation, for example, like that. Usually future tense is for the conclusion. I always tell my students, especially the weaker one, because I'm teaching students who are medium to the intermediate as well as the weak students. So giving such reminders is much easier for them to take. And you have to keep reminding them, and hopefully, inshallah, they are able to remember this. Can I move on? Okay. Okay, this is yes?
Okay, there are 3 questions so far.
So wow.
I'm going to, yes.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Still about the idioms just now, okay? The question is, how can we use idioms when we are writing an essay? Okay, how? And then second, what mark will they obtain if they use them? Okay, and then the last one is it a must to use idioms in essays?
All right. So I would say, let me go back. Sorry. I can just answer straight away. Okay. So usually when it comes to idiom, it is not a must, but if you use it, you can get better marks. As mentioned before, when it comes to all these things, is like they are the main points, and they are consolidating points, meaning that idioms, you can use it, but don't use it too much. Even for PT3, recently we also have that pose the same question, because for PT3, they mentioned that, okay, we try not to use too many idiomatic expression, use realistic expression, right? So when we refer back to the current CFR for Form 4, what I could say is that idiomatic expression can be used, and you can use in sentence. For example, when it comes to directed writing, maybe not much, but you can use it especially in continuous writing. Okay, for example, when you talk about idiomatic expression, you can, for example, like no, okay, time and tide wait for no man. Okay, you can use that to illustrate that you shouldn't wait until something happens, right? Let's say you are writing a narrative. You choose a narrative question, and the question is about describe on how an event has changed a person's life and how this affect his confidence. So you can use time and tide with for no man. Let's say Ali learned this the hard way. So you can use that as long it is in context with the sentence. And just now you talk about how frequent and how often can we use the idiomatic expression in essay. I would say that um, do not do it excessively. You can use it. Remind students that idiomatic expression is not a must, but if you do it, then you can get better marks. And it comes this is also similar to other parts, which is the quotes and statistic. As long you do it sparingly, then that is the best way to to handle and to use idiom in essay. Does
So
that answer
basically,
the question?
yes, definitely. So basically, idioms are only suitable to be used in continuous writing. Yes, Data?
Most of the time, yes. But directed writing, if it's suitable, you can use it, especially when you want to illustrate, for example, a situation that you want to use. You want to illustrate a situation, and but don't use it too much. This one because this is actually supporting my next point, which is content and elaboration formula. 1C plus 2Es, meaning that when you talk about content, okay, let's say the main content is about flood, right? And the flood, okay, the point is saying that, okay, that everybody must work together. Um, you must work together, or you shouldn't wait until the last minute. So you can say haste make waste. So if people, what does it mean haste make waste? Meaning that if they delay, if they dilly-dally, if they procrastinate, if they don't want to do something and wait until the last minute at the 11th hour, for example, then they will be end up as a victim of flood. So you can use this in essay to describe that, but don't use it to layer up your essay. That's not how idiomatic expression should be used. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Data.
All right. So content and elaboration formula. So this is the formula that I always tell my students: 1C and 2Es. Maximum is to elaboration because we have a lot of content. So do not overdo when it comes to elaboration. So far, this one okay, yeah. Okay, now this is some example how you can help the students to elaborate on the points. I'm not going to read everything, but you can see from here, you can teach students to come up with keywords. For example, like heavy downpour. Some students maybe they do not know what is downpour. They can use dictionary. They can use they can ask the teachers, but I prefer students to do their own self searching and come up with this. For good students, yes, come up with really solid vocabulary like torrential rain, okay, but and also you're aware of this cats and dogs, raining cats and dogs, and you can come up with some information there, okay. For example, like this: waterborne diseases, because some students they might not know what is the waterborne diseases means. So sometimes for weak students, you teach the students, okay, diseases, water, so they know that it's something to do with water, and these are some of the information that the students can search for and they can add to their essay. Good students for A plus essay, they have extensive points and facts like this: cholera, leptospirosis, and so forth. All right, so far okay. Yeah,
Yeah, Data.
can I move on? Okay. Right. So helpline. So you can give the students all this information and ways to help victim, blah, blah, blah. So a strategy that I can share with all teachers when you want to do this essay in school is that some students may be overwhelmed finding all the information on themselves. So one strategy that you can do, especially when you're teaching weak student, is that you can divide the points in class, and then you can get some students to find out the information for this part, some students to find this, something like a jigsaw, jigsaw writing. So they find out some information and the rest find out some parts. So in that way, for the weaker students, they don't feel overwhelmed. They can learn together on what are the points, and teachers can also scaffold and also assist them when it comes to this. All right. And solution is cleanup activities, awareness, blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to teaching writing, there are many strategies. For the good students, you can straight away give the essay. But the majority of our students in school, they are in the middle, they are weak. So helping them by working together is better. So they feel that, oh, I'm not going to do this on my own. But later on, as they are more confident, they can do this on their own. Okay. Now, continuous, sorry, this is supposed to be directed writing. So use sentence connectors. All right. So what sentence connectors you can use? Okay, something like this. Okay. You can use all these things. I'm sure the teachers have already exposed students how to use sentence connectors. Unfortunately, most students, they always stick with the same word. So is it wrong? No. But if you want to get A plus, you have to encourage students to explore other type of sequence connector. And the most important thing is that it is correctly used. All right. Now, for directed writing, you have to use a polite tone and appropriate style. When does this apply? When you are writing letters, because if it's a formal letter, then you have to use a polite tone. Informal letter, different type of tone, which is more casual and all that. All right. And just as a reminder, okay, this is like a summary of what I've mentioned. Use the correct format, use all the content point provided, give relevant own idea, one CP, one content point, and one elaboration. And you have to recheck your AC. Any questions so far?
Sorry for interrupt. There bottom right there is a white screen.
Oh, okay.
Block the view. Block the.
Okay, give me a sec. Okay,
Yeah.
give me a second, yeah. Sorry about that. It happens sometimes, some glitch. Okay. So just now I was reminding the teachers about this. Use the correct format. Use all the contents point and give relevant own ideas. Don't write too long when it comes to elaboration. And most important thing, students, is to recheck your essay. Check your essay, because even the good one will not get the marks that you want if you don't recheck your essay. So, okay. So this is, you have to use all the points. You have to elaborate an example. I always tell students, don't forget to P. P, the point. E, elaborate, and another one, example. Because students like to go to the washroom, so this is something that they always remember. Point, elaborate, example. Don't forget that. Okay. So far, okay. Any question?
So far, okay, doctor.
Okay.
I would just like to remind now it's already 10, so we are going to cover continuous writing anytime soon.
We have what? Sorry.
Are we going to cover continuous writing up to date?
Yes.
Okay.
This is
all right.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yes, because I plan 10 o'clock is continuous writing. So we are going to do continuous writing. Sorry, because just now there was a tech glitch.
Okay,
So
no problem.
all right. So DW. All right. So this is like how you want to remind students on how to manage their time well. I will tell students 15 minutes to plan your draft, 10 minutes to edit, and 15 minutes to rewrite if you like, and 5 minutes to check your grammar. Depends on you. But I always tell students, don't spend too much time in just brainstorming. Okay, but you have to plan the essay. You cannot just simply write, because usually students who do that, if they are really good students, fine. But even as good students, you need to plan your essay well. Right. So we are going to go to continuous writing now. Okay. One of the things that I think students have problem is that they just tell when it comes to they just tell in the essay. They don't really show. For example, it is a nice day. That is just telling. How do you want to show that it is a nice day? Can you give me some example? You give by? How do you want to describe a nice day? You can say that the sun is shining brightly. You can say there is a light breeze. And you can say that the weather is not too hot and not too cold. So these are ways for you to show and not just telling. Because most of our students, they have the tendency to just tell. If you want to get good marks in essay, you have to show more. Okay. Example like this. Okay. Some students will say, oh, Jimin was shocked. Okay, but how can you explain? How can you show that Jimin is shocked? Was shocked? So you can say Jimin couldn't help himself. His jaw dropped to the floor as his eyebrows shot towards the stampede of fans. So we can teach our students in order for them to show and not tell, be expressive. How shocked is he? That's why we have the jaw drop to the floor to show exaggeration. You can also say when someone is angry. How does someone shows or portray that they are in anger? So example like this one, Alif was angry. So how can we teach students that it is important for them to show how Alif was angry rather than just mentioning he is angry. So you can mention something which is more in detail, like Alif pursed his lips and clenched his fist into tight balls. So when you have this imagery, the visual imagery, students are able to give expression or impression to the markers that they can visualize this in their mind. Clenching your fist into tight balls. So that action give this visual imagery, which is conjuring very nice, flow of essay story. And then you can,
Doctor,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. We cannot see the slide.
Oh, cannot.
Okay.
What it? That's okay. Wait.
Okay, alright. Because a student just now came and
Oh,
then press
oh,
the
okay.
press now.
Oh, all right. Sorry. That what happened. So thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
Okay, maybe. Okay. Can you see now?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Also,
So
I think it's maybe it's appropriate for all of us to pin the slideshow that Dr. Fadzleen is presenting now, so that
yeah.
yeah, every time
Or else
someone,
it's
yeah,
yeah. When you pin it out, so you cannot turn to other presentation. Thank you for that reminder.
okay, okay,
Okay. Maybe I'll just like go back to the first one. Like just now, I was talking about show, not tell. What I mean by show, not tell, like for example, you students write down, I'm shocked, or he was shocked. Ali was shocked. So how do you want to describe that someone is very shocked? So you express, you show it by visual, by showing expression, by showing emotion. So this is some example that the students can do by exaggeration using hyperbole. If those people who are exposed to English literature, hyperbole means like making exaggeration, like over the top, like this. The jaw dropped to the floor. So it's not really the jaw dropped to the floor, but it shows like, wow, he's so shocked. All right. And for example, like the next one, Alif was angry. So how do you want to show that Alif was angry? You show, don't tell. I always tell my students, show, not tell. Why? Because if you want to get A plus for your essay, it's very important that you show this, you conjure this image to your assessors, to your markers. So you can mention about the lips. How is the facial expression showing the anger? So you, as teachers, maybe we can demonstrate to them, or we can get students to demonstrate. How do you feel when you're angry? And you can use this as a demo, and students can use this expression that their friends have and to write it down. This is one way to help students who are very weak because they don't have the words on their mind. So when you demonstrate to them, or you get students to demonstrate how they are angry, then they can use that to write it down and to give clue on how to write. For example, purse his lips, like going very tight, and then clench his fist into tight balls. So students who they watch a lot of anime, they lot a lot of fights, so they know how to do this. Okay. And then he shivered in fury. So this is a very good imagery, saying like, oh, he shivered. Because most of the time students think, oh, teacher shivered, menggigil, it means a cold. Not necessarily. When someone is in anger, they can also shiver. And this shows another level of anger. All right. Not able to contain himself. Within seconds, he erupted like a raging volcano. Wow, this is something that if students are able to come up with this expression, giving simile, then it will good. So this is an example that I mentioned earlier about using idioms, using simile to give depth to your writing. So students, if possible, don't settle to just telling. Show the emotion. Example like this one. What you can do with your students is you can give them some sentences like this, and you get the students to write down and to show and not just that. For example, I felt happy. What are words? How can you do that? How can you show happiness? You can say that, oh, I'm on the top of my world, I'm the top of the world. Okay, like he smiles like a Cheshire cat from grinning from ear to ear. All right, something like that. So students, they have these ideas, and you don't have to give up all the information. You can get students to collaborate and to come up with some ideas, and then you can discuss together and choose which one is appropriate, which one they can use to help each other. This way, you are building a vocabulary and sentence bank. Because teachers, if you do everything on your own, man, it's going to be very tiring, right? So get students to come up with their own ideas, work together. But of course, if they are weak, they need some help, then maybe you can give some words and you can ask the students to use a dictionary, or you can give some get feeling for them to make sentences. Like Nina felt sad. So what are things that people do? How can you show that someone is sad? You can say that, okay, you can say that tears trickling on her cheeks. Okay, she sobbed uncontrollably. So you can use all these things to express that. So this is one exercise that you can use with your students to motivate them to write in a more expressive way. So far, okay?
Okay, doctor, there's one question.
Sure.
Okay, the student is asking if he wants to incorporate a quote mentioned by a
Mm-hmm.
specific person, but
Right.
the kid forgot the name of the specific person. Will it affect the mark just by saying,
Right.
uh,
I understand, because
okay,
sometimes you remember the quote. For example, be the change that you would like to be in the world, right? That is by Mahatma Gandhi. So you know the quote by heart. But oh my God, during that examination, you suddenly forgot about that quote. You forgot who said that. It's okay. You can say a famous. You can say like a famous. If you know it's a politician, you can say, or a famous, for example, humanitarian, because Mahatma Gandhi is a humanitarian. So you can say a famous humanitarian once said, okay, be the change that you want to be seen in the world. Or if you're talking about patriotism, you can use John F. Kennedy's quote, okay, ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. But if let's say you heard of that, but you don't remember that, you can say that one of the famous quote that is associated with patriotism is blah blah blah. So
so
you
you
can
don't
use
have
that.
this mentioned specifically.
Some students, they may feel intimidated, or they may feel, oh my God, I don't remember this person. Should I just abort writing it at all, or should I just leave it out? I would say that just write it out, because sometimes, as long that you are able to word it well, as long it is in context, as long it actually consolidate, it actually strengthen the flow of the essay, do it. Because but make sure that you mention, like, okay, a famous politician or a famous person. You can say like, this is the quote that I remember, well, and you can mention like that. So it's okay. All right. But if possible, I would suggest to students, please remember some quotes, especially the one that is quite general, that you can use in your essay. When it comes to patriotism, I always tell my students, use the John F. Kennedy quote: ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. And Mahatma Gandhi also have very good quote, and the rest. There are many good quotes that you can use. Okay, and don't or how do I say this? Just try to find quotes that is not too long. That way you are able to remember it better. Okay, all right. Can I move on?
Yes, sure. Thank you, doctor.
No problem. Um, Feel free to share as well your techniques in doing this, because for me, I'm not the sage on the stage. I'm just the guide by the side, meaning that we are all together guiding our students. So feel free to share ideas, because this is what the session all about. It's not about just one person dominating, but we are actually here networking together, sharing ideas. And this is what I like about knowledge sharing. Next, when we talk about afraid, right, we're talking about fear. So you can ask the students to describe this. And also students, if you can do this at home, what I suggest that you do is, if you want to do this exercise at home, I would like you to open thesaurus.com. You can Google it, thesaurus.com. And then you can find all the related words about afraid or fear. Is there someone talking?
Okay, students, please silence your microphone, yeah? Azlan Wong.
Okay. It's okay, Azlan. It happens. So just kindly silence that. No worries. I think Azlan was very excited to join me. Okay, Adam was afraid, for example. So you try to come up with words that can express fear. You can say shivering. So I always tell students, okay, maybe go to thesaurus.com. If you have dictionary, go and find all these words. Thesaurus.com is actually a very good source for students who do not have the vocabulary, because even especially when English is not your first language, this is something that's not supposed to be ashamed about. You're not supposed to be ashamed about this. But what you should do is that you make effort to improve yourself. Okay, I understand this because I come from a small village in Johor, and English was not my first language, but you have to make the effort. So students, don't worry, as long as you try your best, please try to use thesaurus, find out the vocabulary, and your teachers would love you if you try this on your own, not simply relying on teachers all the time, right, teachers? Okay. Cyberbullying is bad. Okay, cyberbullying. So one of the things that students like to write is bad. Bad is a safe word. So I want you to come up with more, a better word when it comes to expressing negative impact. So you can say is detrimental. You can use the word, okay? It has you can use all these words that you can find online, or you can actually use the dictionary. So express it. How does cyberbullying happens and all those things. Right. So let's give you some tips in answering continuous writing section. So Mingho is going to help me do this. Okay. First one, choose the topic you are most familiar with. I think most teachers, you do this. Students, you also know this. You have to choose the topic that you're most familiar with. Don't use this examination hour to test the waters. What do I mean test the water? Meaning that you just try to do something new. No, I never do this question, so I want to do this lah. Cannot. Okay, it's not advisable. I would say that the strategy for students to attempt or to write or answer continuous writing is to choose topic you're most familiar with. Why? Because if you are familiar with the topic, if you're confident in writing the topic, then you are able to write well. So far, so good? Okay. Now, let me give you some example. Okay, this is some question. I'm not going to read the whole the stack of question, but one thing for you to know is that there are 5 questions altogether, and starting from this year, the SPM question is going to be hot. So they are definitely not going to be very straightforward. They are going to ask you an event, and then you have to describe the impact on you, or how you overcome the issue, or how you learn from it. So students, please remember, and teachers, please bear in mind to teach your students in, after knowing what to write about topic, associate it with their feelings, associate with how they reflect on the event to themselves. So this is usually the type of SPM question they are designing for this year, starting this year. Next year is going to be CFR, so hopefully it's something which is not too far away from what we've been teaching so far. Okay, So these are some questions. So please choose questions that you feel are appropriate for you. Some people like to use narrative. Why narrative? Because it's like a story. And some teachers will encourage students to write a story. But there is a pro and cons in writing story, because for students, if you're writing story, that means you have to come up with the plot, you have to come up with the character, and you have to come up with the ending of the story. For some students, maybe they feel, oh, I cannot think of anything. So sometimes this is one strategy that a school in Johor have used. For weaker students, they teach them to answer factual essay. For some people might think, oh wow, factual essay it sounds hard, right? But for students, some students, because these are facts are easier and it is less variety, so some teachers, they encourage students to do this. For example, students face more challenges compared to adults. So some teachers will encourage students to answer something like this because it's very straightforward. You need to give at least 3 points, elaboration, and that's it. Okay. So some strategies for continuous writing. Okay. So how do you want to do this? Okay. You can do some brainstorming. Okay. You look at the question and you brainstorm. And then you have to do a mind map. For example, the mind map that I would suggest students to do is the WH question. That is the simplest one. Even no matter whether you're in primary school up to university level, mind mapping using WH question always works. You use the who, what, when, how, why, and where. Okay, so these are all WH questions that could help students in writing their essay well. And come up with keywords. You don't have to write the whole sentence first when it comes to brainstorming, because when you get the keywords, it's easier for you to, you don't waste time in writing the whole thing. Because come on, it's like 35, it is long. You need to write 350 words. Therefore, you need more time in writing. So don't waste time in writing sentences. Okay? All right. So this is like a mind map for you to come up with brainstorming. So I always tell students, first you brainstorm, then you elaborate your points, then you give some example, and last is proofread. This is the pyramid when it comes to the checklist in essay writing. So it can be for directed writing as well as continuous writing. Right. So when you are writing narrative, right, this is a favorite essay for students. So what are the elements that students need to do? So the most important thing is that you identify what character do you want to use. Is it a first person or third person? First person is, of course, I. For example, that is the easiest way. Students write, okay, this is from my perception. So the subject would be I. Third person is you give a name to the students. You give name to the character. And of course, you have to add some characteristic and emotion. I would suggest to weaker students or intermediate students, if you're not confident in writing from third person. Why? Because for third person, you have to write she, he, her, his, right? So some students may have this issue. So usually for weak students, I would suggest writing from the first person point of view. All right. And then characteristic emotion. How does the person feels? How does the person act? So these are the things that the students can do. And you have the plot. What are the plots? I'm sure that your teacher have told you, when you're writing a story or you're writing a narrative, let's say the question is saying like, complete the essay with this sentence. Start your essay with this sentence. Okay. It was raining heavily yesterday. So how do you want to create the intro? Of course, you use that sentence and then you build up the story. When you talk about rising action, there must be characters. So you include that, what happened first, and climax here refers to what is the main plot in the story. Okay, that changed the whole situation. And of course, you have the conclusion or the resolution where the story ends. And of course, you have setting. It's something like STEM. I always tell my students the STEM technique, which is S is the setting, T is a theme. What is your story about? What is the theme? Is it about friendship? Is it about bravery? And then you have A. A is actor. Actually, it's character, but stamp is easier to use. So A is the actor. So who are the characters in your story? M. Your story, if you want to get A plus, you must have moral values. Include moral values in your story. And P is the plot. So stamp is a very good technique to use when you're writing essay. S for setting, okay, T for team, A for the actor or the character, M is the moral value, and P is for plot. You have all these elements, inshallah, you can get very good mark for essay. Am I going too fast? Okay. All right. So I'm sure that teachers, you always use this to help you in essay. So you use the senses, the sight, the touch. Yes.
T just now is representing team or team? T-H-E-M-E.
T-H-E-M-E.
Team. All right. Okay.
So you have setting of place, setting of time. T, the team, T-H-E-M-E, team. And then team meaning that in your story, what is the main theme? Because usually in the essay question for 1119, they always mention about name an event that changed your life. So you have to name how that event, what is the theme in the event? Does it talk about bravery? Does it talk about selflessness? Does it talk about kindness? Does it talk about love, compassion? So when you identify the theme in the story, it's going to be a very nice flow for your story. And then you have the actor, which is the character. You can decide whether the character is first point of view, which is I blah 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 blah, or you can use the third person, which is, let's say, Ali or Abu. I like to use that name as my default name. And then remind the students to not spend too much time thinking of the name of the character. Trust me, my students do this a lot. They would think for 10 minutes just to come up with a name for their character, and I say don't waste time, focus on the plot. All right. And then you have the moral values, because for every for narrative, or some stories that have reflective essay, you have to come up with what do they learn, because nowadays for SPM question, it is HOTS question, therefore they have to relate it to themselves. If the students would like to get better marks, make sure that you can have a takeaway. Takeaway doesn't mean like takeaway KFC or something like that. No, takeaway here means what can you take from that story? What can you learn from the story? So this is something that a good essay should has. All right, and then you also have the plot that is very important in the story. And in order to make your essay much better, to help you to write better, apart from the WH question, please remember the senses. Okay, I know some of you might say, oh teacher, there are 6 senses. Yes, but 5 senses would do for now. Okay, so you have the sight, you have the touch, taste, smell, and sound. Now, some student will ask me, teacher, do I need to include all the 5 senses in my essay? Not necessarily, because let's say you're talking about a night market. So not everything is included here. So as long that you are able to conjure or to come up with the right expression, the right senses that could give this visual image to your essay, then that would be great. Okay, so far, do you understand? I can give a demonstration on how to write this essay using the senses. Example, just now I said a night market, right? So when we talk about sight, what can you see at a night market? You can say there's a hustle. You can say there's a sea of people, sea of patrons, sea of customers. You can see there are peddlers, there are hawkers, there are people, there are customers going, zooming in and out in the night market. And then you have the touch. What can they do at the night market? You say like some customers are touching some fruits to see whether, okay, like say they want to evaluate and see the fruits and the wares.
Sorry, doctor.
Yes?
I need to interrupt for a while.
Sure.
Miss Secret, can you please mute your microphone?
All right.
Miss Secret, okay, please mute your microphone. Okay. Miss Secret, please. Yeah, please mute your microphone. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. All right. So I was saying, yeah. So I'm just giving some example on. Give me a second. Yeah, I need to plug something. All right. All right. So like when you are guiding your students in using senses, make sure that you use the show, not tell. Okay, so how do they taste? For example, the fruit. Okay, they always use the same vocabulary. Oh, the food tastes good. So how do you want to show that the food is good? You can say, oh, the food is delectable, mouth-watering. Okay, it is scrumptious. So give students this opportunity to find out all these words to describe that. You can say, okay, and then the smell, show, not tell. So you can actually use all these information like WH question. You can use the sensors. You can use the show, not tell to complement each other to write essay. Because you know what, essay is not just writing about what happened. For example, from A to Z or A to Z, you have to give some image. Because, for example, some people here like to watch Korean drama, right? Why? Because you have a lot of plots, lots of things happen. There are some climax, there are some plot twists, right? For example, if you watch Crash Landing on You, sorry, I use that because I like that story. So, for example, when you watch something like that, a K drama, or like you watch like any movies that entice you, so you can see that a very good storyline have all these elements. They have an element of surprise, element of, there's this transition of event happening. Everything is not just happy all the time, right? Every good story have this element of conflict of issue. So if you are writing an essay, remember this. Think of the books that you like, think of the story that you like, and use that to guide you in writing essay. That's why I always tell students, it's okay if you don't read book as much, but use the songs that you listen to, use the movie that you like to help you in writing, because not all students are the same. Some students are very audio kinestical, meaning that they like to listen to music. Some students are very visual, they like to read books. Some students prefer, listen to a story like an audio book. So there's so many things, up to you. But there are also students who are reluctant in everything. So this is a challenge for teachers. So we have to do our best in giving a way that to help the students learn. But you know what? You can bring the horse to the water, but you cannot make it rain, right, teachers? So students, please remember, your teachers are doing all their best, so you have to make the effort too. And I'm sure all the students in Sabah and attending these sessions are all excellent students. Now let's go to the next part. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, let me know, but I'm okay if you stop me and ask questions. All right.
Okay,
Yes.
doctor, there's one question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one student, okay, he says here he always wanted to try narrative, but always stuck in the plotting part.
All right.
Okay, so
What's
he has a
which
story, but
which which
the,
part did
ident-
they start?
the identification part of the plot technique.
Mm.
Uh, he
All
cannot
right. So when
identify the rising part, the climax, though it
mm-hmm.
affects the paragraph distribution.
Right. Because I think usually you have this traditional or the conventional way of writing the story. You have the resolution, you have the rising points, right? Everything like that. So here's the thing. Not all story has to work the same way. That is the traditional way. Some story can start with a flashback. It doesn't necessarily have to go from like what we call as what is the word chronological. Not all story has to be in chronological order. Chronological order, if you're learning history, it happens according to dates. Some story happen by flashback, and usually essay that has A plus have this element of surprise. So let's say you're stuck in not knowing how to move on from, you have, for example, you have this character, like they are in school, and you have this idea of the students are being cyberbullied. Let's say you have this idea. Okay, the students are being cyberbullied, and you identify the character, which are, let's say, a new student, and you can say there are some bullies, there are teachers involved, there are best friend involved, maybe. All right. So let's say you identify the characters. You also identify the main plot. Okay, the premise of this story is about cyberbullying. So how do you want to write this thing? So one technique that students can write is they can do flashback. For example, these students are, for example, you can use a dialogue. Sometimes you can say, oh, say, stop it, stop it, stop it. Okay, don't harm me anymore. And you can use that to catch the attention of the assessor. You don't necessarily have to start an essay with, oh, one day a new student just moved to SMK Kinarut. For example, just now because I saw SMK Kinarut. So you don't actually have to simply write your essay with like one day a new student moved to SMK Kinarut. You can actually just use an element of flashback. For example, stop it, don't hurt me anymore. You can use that as we call this as a hook, hook, you know, like a fish and fishing. So you can use this as a hook. You don't necessarily have to use the same monotone or the same safe area. This is for good student. If you are confident in this, you can build up with dialogues. You can build up with using quotation. Quotation block. You can use quotes. You can also use, for example, some song lyrics. Why not? But of course, don't write the whole lyrics there. Then it's not going to be helpful, right? So how do you want to build up from that? You can say that, okay, you identify this is the topic, and then when you want to build up, you identify what is the conflicts that's going to happen. For example, like maybe the person who has been snitching means to, you know, talk behind your back, or a person who has been informing this bully is actually your best friend. Your best friend is your backstabber. Your best friend is someone who, you know, who is actually betrayed you. So that makes the story more interesting and more compelling. Okay, so when you think about the story, I would always suggest students come up with one of the exercise that you can do at home or with your friends, is that think of how many possible scenario you can write when it comes to cyberbullying. For example, oh, the first scenario, new students came to school. Just write the plot. And then after that, you choose which one is more interesting and you compare. That's what I do with my student, especially the intermediate, because sometimes they don't know how to write a story. They don't have any idea. And getting a lot of students coming up with their own ideas, then you choose, oh, I like this part. Maybe we can put your idea to my story and we can do it together, teachers. And then you can build it up together. So what this is one way that you can actually, you know, you can build up the essay. Does that help? Sorry if I talk too much. This is what happened in my class sometimes.
Exactly, doctor. So basically, we don't have to follow the necessarily
Not
chronological
necessarily.
order. Yes,
Not
just like the
necessarily.
song, doctor.
Pardon?
Just like a song, okay? Sometimes a song begins with the chorus first, and then the first verse, second verse.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Thank you, doctor.
Yes, because I think most students nowadays they listen to a lot of songs, right? And even for myself, I mean, as someone who learn based from movies and television and songs, so you usually see the lyrics as a way for you to get some storyline. So some students, maybe you don't you feel intimidated because, oh, you know what, I'm stuck, I don't know what what I can do from this point, what is going to happen next. So you can get students to, you know, to think by getting their friends to help out and contribute ideas. All right. All right, so that brings to the second. I'm not too sure what how many the next one. Okay, variety of sentences. Some students they are safely using simple sentences for all their essay, especially when they are not confident in writing essay. But now, if we want to focus on preparing them as SPM candidate, it is very important for students to know you need to have variety of sentences. You don't actually have to use complex sentence all the time. Some students think that everything must be complex. No, you can even write simple sentence. You know, I read in a book recently by J.K. Rowling. Okay, you know the author of Harry Potter. She mentioned that a good a good sentence or a good paragraph is like a song. It's like a melody, meaning that they are short melody. They are what we call as vibrato. You have the climax of a song. You have the ups and downs. So sentence is like that. she used the analogy to show that sentence should have the up the simple as well as the complex. So you don't actually have to write everything complex all the time. And but please do not write everything simple most of the time. So you have to make sure that you have a combination of simple, compound, and complex. And the most important thing, when you use all the sentence, please use the correct tenses because students have this problem. Okay, some of the things that students can do. Okay, all right. So word clouds. I use this exercise with my students doing word clouds because some students they do not have ample vocabulary when it comes to describing people, places, and event. Why people, place, and event? Because these are the three sure shot areas that people do when it comes to essay. So you can do this practice. You can do how to describe a physical appearance based from this. The characteristic, what are the traits? Is it positive? Is it negative? And the places. Name the place or venue. For example, you're writing a story, right? Just now you mentioned about, let's say, cyberbullying. You have to if you put the name of a place or venue, it's nicer rather than saying, oh, it happened at school. Which school? So you write the name of SMK, for example, SMK Bandar Baru Uda. So this is one way for you to make it show, not tell. And then make it more descriptive. You can say, is the scenario, is the place serene? Serene means, is it a place calm? What sound can you hear? So this is talking about senses. Birds chirping, you can say sounded by, okay, the trees and all these things, the greenery, and then all that, and you can describe about the sound. So as I mentioned earlier, use WH question, use senses in order to describe this. And for events, there are one question in SPM that always talk about events. Okay, so you can use this as you can get the students to think about what are the events that usually students do. Usually, based from my analysis of SPM question, the event that is being tested in the examination are always related to students. Very rarely they are going to talk about political rally, they're going to talk about the doomsday. No, usually they is very closely related to students, either talking about sports day, talking about jumble sale, talking about co-curriculum day, and um, and I think that one of the questions that might be asked is something related to health. It can be talking about COVID-19 or talking about natural disaster, talking about pandemic. So please, get yourself equipped with information relating to health, ways to overcome these issues and so forth. Okay, and you have to use sentence connectors. All right. So using sentence connectors is important. Why? Because you want to show the time. You want to compare. You want to add to the essay. You want to prove and repeat, emphasize. All these things are why we use connectors. But please remember, dear students, that connectors shouldn't be used for all sentences. As mentioned here, it is to emphasize, it is to link, it is to have the smooth flow, okay, to your essay. So you have to use it accordingly. You don't use it for every sentences. You use it when it is necessary. Okay. All right. The easiest way is next, after that, and then you have the sequence connectors such as, like first, lastly, and all and so forth. Now, this is the part. Earlier, you talk about idioms, right, and figurative language and jargon. Why do we use idiom, figurative language, and jargon? Earlier, I mentioned that use it sparingly. Don't use it for everything. Okay, figurative languages. For example, you talk about the 11th hour. Let's say you're talking about studying, smart studying, okay, or time management. So you can use figurative languages to describe about the topic better and effectively. And jargons, use sparingly because it doesn't mean you have to use bombastic word for throughout your essay. Use it, for example, if you're talking about technology, right? You're talking about cyberbullying, you're talking about spamming, you're talking about catfishing. Catfishing, nothing to do with the C, eh? Catfishing means you are tricking someone into a different identity for a negative reason. Okay, so these are some of the terms that you must know. And I would suggest students, what you should do is you can write down certain topics. For example, jargon when it comes to internet, jargons when it comes to natural disaster, jargon when it comes to pandemic, or when it comes to health. For example, jargon when it comes to health, you can talk about healthcare, you can talk about pandemic, you can talk about all these words. Okay, the frontliners, right? These days we are being exposed to the word frontliners. So these are some words that you can familiarize yourself in order to write a well-written essay. Okay, so this is some example. I will give this to Madam Betty, and you can actually look at through. You can look through it. All right, I'm just going to go fast. I'm not going to read everything. So this is the hook that I told you about. How you can grade a great hook, because you want to get A plus, you need to catch the attention of your assessor. So you can use a question. For example, what is the meaning of life? For example, okay, you can also mention, for example, like, why do people destroy the earth? Something like that. Okay, and you can use also the dialogue or quotes. This is something that I think a student earlier asking about quotes. And you can also use, this is something which is what we call as onomatopoeia in literature. You can use words like crash, boom, bang, the sound of it, cling, clang, I don't know, something like sound of to show that sound senses, the sensory. It can enhance that sensory sensitivity when it comes to you reading your essay, and appeals to the senses. You can put the question reader's head. You don't always have to tell the readers everything. This is what makes a good book. This is what makes a novelist, a novel, a bestseller. Okay, not all books. If you look at the pattern of all good books, they always have a plot twist. You don't really have to put everything together. But please lah, my student, don't write, oh, then she woke up from her sleep. Oh man, that is a cliche. Okay, so always think of some ways. For example, you say, okay, and everything changes. Full stop. What happened next? Nobody knows, right? So you can do something like that. Any question when it comes to this? Hi. Okay.
No. Okay. No questions so far, Doctor.
Okay, good. All right, so next one, read again and check for grammatical, spelling, and punctuation error. So again, my dear students, and just a reminder for teachers, this is important and crucial for our students, because when students are answering questions, sometimes they miss this. They are engrossed, they are focused, they are laser focused on answering and reaching that 350 words and writing as long as possible, that they forgot to proofread their essay. Trust me, proofreading saves life and save your essay. If you want to get A plus, please proofread your essay. Please make time, at least 5 minutes to check your essay, because sometimes it might be the simple, minute mistakes that cause the A and A plus. You get what I mean? So please just remind the students. Even for myself, I remind my student too, because this happens even for expert writers too. That's why they always have proofread for everything. So please remember, students, yeah? So you always check your essay, make sure you have time to write your essay. Don't think that you have to write as long as possible. As long it is around 350 words and your grammar is on point, your spelling, and you know why? Because some of my students, what happened, they want to rush through their writing. One of the most common mistakes is the THERE and THEIR. Sometimes they mistake those simple mistake because they know the word, but the spelling might be mistaken. So if it's more than one, then it can cause your grade. So please be very careful. And how do you want to manage your time? So basically, these are the recommended time management strategy. 5 to 10 minutes for the mind map and 10 minutes to draft. You can have 5 minutes if you think you want to spend more time to write. This is not a sure shot. This is not the only way for you to plan. Up to you. If you want just to 5 minutes to draft, fine. Then you can spend more time on the writing. You know yourself better, right? This is just a suggestion. All right. So this is the continuous writing time management recommendation. Okay. So okay, just to recap, pick the question that you can do the best. That's number one. Number two, attempt the question requirement. If they ask you to start the essay with that statement, use that statement. Do not use the statement in the wrong way. For example, they ask you to begin, then you have to use that. At least 5 paragraphs. This is because you have intro, you have conclusion, and you have paragraph in between. So make sure a good essay should have 5 paragraphs. And why is it in red? Because I cannot stress. I cannot stress. That is like check your writing after writing, because it's very important. Proofreading is very important and very crucial. This is one of the things that is crucial when it comes to writing a good essay. Now, I want to end my essay in my workshop or my session with giving some strategies for reluctant writers, because some of us, we have students who do not want to write, or they are unsure how to write, they don't know how to start. So these are some strategies that you can use. Please bear in mind that these are just some suggestions. If you have other strategy that you want to share, please feel free to share in the comment box. Yeah. So the first one that you can do is you can provide sentence starters for any assignment or prompt you give, especially for students who are very weak. We call this as like A2 students. CFR, you have the A1 to A2, right? So you can actually give them sentence starters. Okay. So if they are the weaker they are, you can give more sentence prompters, because we want the objective here is to encourage students to write. Sometimes students, they want to write, but they felt intimidated, they feel scared, they don't know where to start. So if we are able to give them some sentence starters, a sample, this can help students to write the essay well. You can also give a sample essay. You can blank it out later. I give you some example. Yeah. You can also do collaborative writing. This will be very helpful if your students are intermediate, even the good one, because sometimes our students, even ourselves, right? We are comfortable in our style. We are so used in writing in our way. But when we do collaborative writing, when we exchange ideas with others, we can see a different perspective. We can see, oh, I can write like this. I never knew I could do like this. So this is one way that you can encourage students, the weaker one, or students who doesn't know how to start, to do it. Yeah. Hmm. Any question? No. Okay. The third one is narrative essay get feeling exercise. I use this for my weak student. I'm teaching the exam classes, the Form 3 and Form 5. So for weak students, what you can do is that you can prepare an essay. This is like if you really want them to start writing, yeah, you can give them a narrative, you can give an essay, and you can do get feeling. Up to you which part of the speech you would like to do it. You can either use verb. For example, you are focusing on the objective of the lesson is to familiarize themselves with past tense. So you can do the get feeling for all verbs. Okay, if your let's say your objective is on pronouns, various type of pronouns, then you can do all the get feeling. I sense that this is very helpful when you are having weak students who don't know how to write. And then after you give this, what you can do, you can scaffold, you can move away from get feeling, and you can ask students to do on their own using the same type of essay, but they change the name, maybe they change the pronoun, they change the starting of place, and that usually helps students and motivates students to write. Next one, value their ideas and encourage them to write. You know, these students sometimes they have idea. They have the idea in their mother tongue. They know the word. For example, oh teacher, saya tahulah apa nak cakap tapi saya tak tahu bahasa Inggeris. So what you can do here is that value the ideas. Yes, that's a good idea. Do you know what is the word in English? So when you give them this input, oh alamak tak tahu. And then you can get the students, your friends to help out. Oh, what do you think is the word? And then they can help your friends together. You know, sometimes the students, they just need a bit of a push to help them to write, because I know it can be hard for them at first, but when they are motivated to do something, that is the best thing, because we rather have a weak students who is constantly learning than a good student who doesn't want to improve themselves. Our focus is to help students who wants to develop their ideas, not just students who are stuck with their own comfort zone and doesn't want to do anything. Yeah, hopefully this is one way you can do this. Number 4, I like to use this because why? Because my students, they like to look at videos, they like to look at songs. So you can use prompts like, you know, you can use video, short video. There's a lot of nice videos on Facebook, on YouTube, and you can use this to get students to write. Maybe like show like a excerpt from Pixar movie or like a short film, and then ask students to write their reflection, like the using the WH question. What happened? When? What happened? Why do the character do like that? What can you learn from the story? So using that, they can combine the ideas together in writing an essay. All right. Okay, so as I said, everything is about blending. This is a beauty blender, this is the usual blender. So you have to blend everything together. There's a lot of strategies that teachers can use. And I believe that all of the teachers here, all the students here, all of you have a lot of ideas in your head. You have a lot of strategies, you know how to write, but sometimes you need to get some help. So you can blend it all together and get the students and the teachers to help you out. All right. So that's pretty much it. I would like to share some. Do I have time? I have 5 more minutes. So I just want to share like some ideas that teacher can use when it comes to using technology in writing. So one of the website or apps that you can use is called Playbus, and this is something that the students can do. They can create a story either using a quiz, they can write a flip card, they can write a trivia. So this is one way you can encourage your students to write. Let's say your students do not have access to internet, or what you can do is that let the teacher do this, and you can share the resources with the students. Okay. And then for grammar, okay, you can use various tools for grammar. I I vouch this. I believe in this because it helps me when I'm checking my students' work on Google Classroom. Okay, because what happens is that you can easily check the students' work, and even the students, if you install Grammarly, it's free of charge. You can write the essay, you upload there, and the apps or the website can underline what word that you can change, what word you can improve, and you can get the feedback on grammar, vocabulary, clarity, and conciseness. Conciseness means that if your essay, your sentence is too long on the same thing, they can suggest sentence. So this is actually a very good um, website that I recommend to teachers and students. Okay, not just for teachers, students can do it too. I give you some example, yeah? Like this. This is my students' work. Okay, so and then when during RMO, so we have the Google Classroom. So you can see that the students have some errors, and they can suggest add a hyphen like this, and you can see stuck. Okay, so they give you a suggestion. So even if a student do this at home, they write essay, they want to recheck their essay, they can upload to this website and they can give you some suggestion. So in that way, teachers, you can lessen your workload. Okay, but as I said, it depends on the resources. Technology is a way, is a tool, but the most important thing is that how well you use the tool. You don't actually have to use all the advanced one, but just the right one that fit the right purpose. Okay. You can even ask the students, okay, use that song. This, I think this is called an earworm, right? A song that you listen to and you cannot get it from your head. So students like songs. So you can get the students to think about the songs, and then you can write about the song, something like that. Okay. And you can also use audio visual stimuli in blended learning. So for example, like, okay, this is an example. Okay, you can use videos with lyrics. You can teach students about various topics. So you can even use this to teach about like the frontliners, talking about heroes. So for example, let's say the essay question is about, write about an inspirational person that changed your life. So you can use this visual to give your students some ideas on how to write about their heroes. Because you can see just now there's a lot of image. It's not, when we talk about hero, it's not just someone who, just like a someone who wears the cape. All right, it can be like even your mother, even someone who is like a doctor, and even our parents and everything like that. So you can use that visual to help you out. All right, so this is one way. When you are using that, decide if you want to use visual. Do you use it at a pre-lesson? Do you use as lesson development, that means the while learning, or you want to use as a post lesson? This is mostly for teachers. Yeah, so students, you can look at it. So your teachers, maybe they use songs at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. All right, so these are some ways that you can use. Okay, these are my students. We are doing this exercise, writing together. Okay, this is a collaborative writing that I did with South Korea school in Yongmun. So we collaborate together. Students write about, about their food that they eat during Hari Raya. Okay, and this is like Google Classroom project with school in Saudi. All right, and you can use pictures. And sorry, I'm going fast. My students, sorry. Okay, so there's a lot of things that I can show you later. You have quizzes. You can use Kahoot. I'm sure you used Kahoot before. And you can also use magazine. And that's about it. All right. You remember, when you're teaching, don't use technology all the time. You can use it 20%. The rest is your job. So that's about it. Thank you very much. Sorry if I'm going fast.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fadzleen, for the wisdom that you have imparted throughout the webinar. So I hope you all can benefit the knowledge gained from this sharing, especially the Form 5 students who will be sitting for their SPM examination in January 2021. Okay, once again, I would like to remind all of you to complete the registration form, just in case you haven't done so. Okay, please complete the registration form. It has been posted in the chat box before. Okay, secondly, please take your time to fill in the feedback form to receive an e-certificate for this webinar. Yes, okay. So you will get a certificate, okay, after filling in the feedback form. Okay, it should be posted anytime soon in the chat box. Okay, the e-certificate will be available until 26 September. After that, you still can watch the recorded video, but the e-certs will no longer be provided. So on behalf of SISC Plus Language Unit of Learning...
Sorry, which box?
Yes. The Google Meet box.
This one, is it?
Yeah, on the right side. Yes, on the right
the
side.
one that says send a message to everyone. This box, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, it has been posted there, registration form. Okay, and also the feedback form shall be posted anytime soon after this. Okay. So on behalf of SISC Plus Language Unit of Learning Sector, PPD Papar and Papar District English Language Secondary School Task Force, we would like to thank the officers from Sabah Education Department and also Papar District Education Office for you joining us today. Especially Madam Betty D. Primus, the SIC Plus of Papar District Education Office for organizing this webinar, Madam Yoli N. as the coordinator of this program, as well as Dr. Fadzleen for the knowledge that you have shared. So before I conclude this session, perhaps you can have a quick photo session, okay, with everyone who is still present now. Can you please switch on your camera and wait for my cue? Okay. Yeah? Okay, everyone, please switch on your camera so that we can have a group photo. Okay. All right. So wait for my cue. All right. So give your best look in the count of three. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. One more time. Okay. In the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's all from me. Signing off now. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for the nice sessions. Bye.